In this video, I'm going to be going over two basic exercises for the hip that are really commonly used throughout ACL rehab, particularly in the early phases. One is going to be clams, and one is going to be just a hip abduction with an ankle weight. These are very commonly given exercises that most facilities have the tools to do it. And the reason why I'm going over today, even though they seem like very simple exercises, is because that there's a very subtle cue that I want to make sure that they understand in order to not compensate. So I'm going to start with the clam. All right, so I'm going to put the band above my knees. Again, stuff that we see all the time. So from my experience, a lot of times when you get people into the clam, you just tell them to raise their knee, right? They do this, and you see my hip opening up, okay? So what I prefer them see, sometimes I'll put my hand on the back, on their lower back or their hip to not allow it to push back. Or you can also have them lay against the wall, that way they have nowhere to go. So I tell them that I want their hip bone, which is right here, pointing straight up towards the ceiling at all times. Because if you rotate too far, then that hip bone, it starts to point back a little bit. Okay? So if I'm behind them and I support their lower back or their hip, then I push up, I have found that that'll isolate the hip significantly more without having to compensate with either the low back or anything like that. All right, so I want to make sure they're isolating that glute as much as possible. So very similarly, if I go with the ankle weight, the exact same compensation will happen. So strap that ankle weight on, is that a lot of people, when they go into it, they'll start rolling their hips back like that, and they'll do something like this to that nature, okay? So again, think about hip bone straight up toward the ceiling, raise that leg, and I want them to get a little bit of extension usually when I'm doing a hip abduction, more like that, as opposed to trying to go too far and then fall back. And a lot of times, if you just give people that simple cue of popping your hand back there, they'll feel significantly more glute activation, which is exactly the point of why we're using these weights in the bands to try and load up the hips and get it stronger. So again, a very simple cue that I found important to make sure that the athlete understands, because if you're giving them exercise to perform at home, if they're not doing it well in the clinic, then they're going to do it poorly at home as well. So yeah, just a simple cue that I like to use for the clamp and a ankle weighted hip abduction. Thank you for watching today's video. Please feel free to like and subscribe and share it on your social media platforms. If you're interested, I have started an ACL Mastermind group, which is a growing library of content centered around ACL rehab. It has exercises ranging from immediate post-op to late-stage sport-specific movements and everything in between. It's a growing library and currently holds over 250 videos. There's content centered around assessments, movement breakdowns, exercise breakdowns, case studies, and a whole lot more. You also gain access to a private forum where you can engage with like-minded people, ask questions, share research articles, and share resources. If you're interested, please feel free to click the link below. Thank you for watching.